I now call to order the November 3rd, 2021 meeting of the Monroe County Board of Zoning Appeals. Who wants to call roll? Larry, you going to call roll for us tonight? You're on mute, Larry.
Margaret Clemens.
Here.
Bernie Garitas.
I'm here.
Skip Daly. Mary Beth Smarchuk.
Here.
And I don't believe Vicki Sorson is here.
Yeah, Vicki and Skip were not going to be able to make it this evening.
We have 3 members and a quorum. I will note that in order to approve or deny a variance, you will need to be unanimous tonight because it has to be majority of the BZA.
John
Okay.
Fisher is here also.
Excuse me?
Yep, this is John Rio.
Okay. We're just taking polls on who the board that is here, the members of the board. Introduction of evidence.
I request the following items of evidence be introduced for tonight's meeting. Monroe County Comprehensive Plan as adopted and amended. Monroe County Zoning Ordinance as adopted and amended. The rules of procedure of the Board of Zoning Appeals, and the cases advertised and docketed for hearing on tonight's agenda, including the material enclosed in the packets and provided online for viewing by the public.
I move we accept the introduction of evidence as outlined by Mr. Wilson.
I second that.
I will call the roll in the introduction of evidence. Bernie Garitas,
Yes.
Mary Beth Smarchuk,
Yes,
Margaret Clemens.
Yes.
Okay, the evidence is introduced.
I move for approval of the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. A vote in favor is to approve the agenda as presented for tonight's meeting. Mary Beth Smarchuk,
Yes.
Margaret Clemens,
Yes.
Bernie Garrett.
Yes.
I will note there have been a couple of changes in the agenda where we had one case that was withdrawn last week from the original published agenda.
Okay, do we need to approve the meeting as amended? Or the agenda is amended?
I think we've already made that amendment, so the agenda on the packet is correct.
The agenda on the package is correct. Okay, thank you. All right. Let's see. No administrative business, no approval of minutes. Old business was continued by the petitioner. So first case number VAR-21-53A in VAR-21-53B. And that is, hang on. That's Ann.
Thank you. Was this VAR 2157?
Yes.
Wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry. I read the old business case number instead. My bad. I'm just jumping around. Okay. Let me redo that. My apologies. VAR-21-57. Ann.
Thank you, Mary Beth. So this is the Skirvin Environmental Constraints Overlay Area 3, which is the, specifically here is going to be the 18% slope restriction for any land disturbance variance request from Chapter 825. So the property is located at 8988 East State Road 45, located in Benton North Township, and is 6.92 acres. So on the left, we have a pictometry photo with an overlay of contours just to get you familiar with this site. So this variance presentation is going to be pretty quick. So the petitioner, this variance became triggered because they had submitted a residential accessory structure permit application for a solar panel installation. So we did note, we had a little bit back and forth, and the location that they do want to install the solar panels is in an area, as you can see on the right, which is greater than 18%. So kind of on a ravine slope. So something to note, I'm going to go back again. When we look at our Elevate GIS, just because of geospatial referencing, it looks like it's off property. It is not off property. The boundary line is farther to the west. So what we are looking at, the petitioner submittals are correct. It's just our imagery is a little off. So the solar panel is shown here on the left. That is just a quick diagram of what they'll be installing. On the right is the petitioner submitted plan, which shows it in proximity to the pool and the home. And on top middle is where they've kind of identified the location of the area using aerial imagery as well. Let's see, so overall, staff is recommending that we do approve this variance from the Eco Area 3 18% slope from Chapter 825. Based on findings of fact, subject to Monroe County Highway and MS4 coordinator reports, we have not had any updates, or we don't have any comments necessarily from those departments, but we do have are recommending the following conditions. So no removal of vegetation for the installation of the solar panel. From what we can tell, there is not vegetation in this area, but as just a confirmation, no removal of vegetation, and that the land disturbance is limited to only the installation of the solar panel. Does anybody have any questions?
Does the board have any questions for Anne? Okay. Is the plaintiff here and would they like to speak? Or I'm sorry, the petitioner here. Is this the petitioner here and would they like to speak? Mr. Law? You don't have to. Okay. I don't see him any. Oh, Aaron Lease. You have your hand up. You're on mute, Aaron.
So I will ask Aaron Lease to unmute. So I should have sent that request. They'll have to, let's see, is it *6 if you're by phone? I think if you're calling in by phone, you hit *6 to unmute yourself.
Tech Services, do you have any ideas of why Aaron might not be able to unmute at this point?
Who?
Aaron Lease. She says in the chat, or they say in the chat, it's not allowing me to unmute.
So what do we do?
Aaron, if you can put
They are
your,
allowed to unmute themselves.
okay. Aaron, the mute, excuse me, the mute button should be in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. If you're unable to unmute, then if you can go ahead and put your phone number in the chat, one of us will go ahead and give you a call and we will take your comment that way.
Did you go down to the bottom of your screen and highlight the bottom area where the video and the microphone are? Okay. There's her phone number.
Anne, are you going to call?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Okay, so I have Aaron on speakerphone. Hopefully this works. Aaron, go ahead.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. My name's Erin. I'm with Power Home Solar. I'm representing this Curvin family. And I just wanted to let you guys know, that there's just should be between 3 and 5 metal posts driven into the ground that shouldn't affect any water runoff or anything like that. And like you said, I can confirm that there won't be any vegetation removed. So we should be good to go on all that.
Okay, thank you so much, Aaron. Does the board have any questions for Aaron? Seeing none, would anyone like to speak on behalf of this petition? Seeing none, is there anyone here that wishes to speak against this petition? Seeing none, does somebody have a motion ready?
I can make a motion in the matter of case number VAR-21-57, Eco Area 3 from Chapter 825. The petitioner is Brian Law. The address is 8988 East State Road 45. And I move that we approve the Eco Area 3 18% slope variance from Chapter 825 based on the findings of fact and subject to the Monroe County Highway and MS4 coordinator reports, and with the following conditions: no removal of vegetation for the installation of the solar panel, and limit of the land disturbance to the installation of the solar panel only.
I'll second that.
Want to call a roll, Larry?
I'll call the roll. The vote is on petition variance number 21-57, Skirvin Eco Area 3 variance from 18% slope. The motion is to approve the variance based on the findings with the development review conditions set forth in the staff report, including no removal of vegetation for installation of the solar panel and land disturbance limited to the installation of the solar panel only. Again, a affirmative vote is a vote to approve the variance with the conditions set forth. Barbara Clements,
Yes.
Bernie Garitas,
Yes.
Marius Kismarchak.
Yes.
The variance is approved by a 3-0 vote.
Okay, thank you, guys. Next case number VAR-21-59, and this is Rebecca.
Hey, everyone. Okay, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. This is a variance request to the design standards laid out in Chapter 830 related to landscaping. And this is for one parcel that contains almost 30 acres in Van Buren Township, and it is the Baxter Pharmaceutical Campus located at 617 through 1001 South Curry Pike. So the petitioner submitted to the planning department a site plan for the addition of a warehouse on their campus. And the site plan did get approved. However, upon a field inspection, it was noted that there was some landscaping that was required per the site plan that had not been installed. And it was a deliberate thing on the side of Baxter because they are concerned about the landscaping attracting insects and pests. And where the proposed landscaping was supposed to go is nearby an entrance to one of their buildings. So essentially what that means is that the petitioner hasn't met all of the required D value of their landscaping. So they're falling a little bit short. or 35%. They've only planted 35% of what is required. So consequently, a variance to the landscaping requirements is necessary before a land use certificate can be issued. Here we have the location map, and the current zoning of the parcel is general industrial. General industrial. These are photos of the location on the campus where the landscaping was supposed to be installed per the site plan. You can see here on the photo on the left is where shrubs and perennials were required. Of course, at the moment it has grass. And this photo on the bottom right is just another shot of the location where the landscaping was required per the site plan. And the top right photo, again, location where the landscaping was required. I do want to mention at this spot, you will see new trees. These are new maple trees that were planted per the site plan. Those did make it in. However, the perennials and shrubs and grasses that were called for were omitted. To get you oriented a bit, this building here is the new warehouse, and that is what triggered the site plan requirement. And it's this bit here in the red where we had called for these perennials and shrubs, and these are what was left out of the plantings. And here you can see the 4 maple trees that I just mentioned in the previous slide. So this location boxed in the red is the area that we're talking about as a whole. Like I said, it's located nearby an entrance. Baxter decided deliberately not to install these requirements based on concerns that it would attract critters. This is the letter to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Hopefully you've all had a chance to read it. I think the petitioner did a really good job sort of explaining their rationale for not including the landscaping. And finally, in terms of a recommendation, planning staff does recommend that the landscaping design standards is approved based on the findings of fact and subject to the following condition: that the petitioner agrees to plant the required plantings equivalent to 260 D value somewhere else on the site. The petitioner must submit to staff a new landscaping plan that shows the planting relocations. So with that, I will take any questions.
Does the board have any questions for Rebecca?
I have one, and I just have to say that in this matter, I completely agree with Baxter. I have landscaping on my property, and my pest control people tell me that mulch harbors a lot of problems, and I don't know why, especially in a pharmaceutical clean environment like this. I mean, I also know that Kellogg and Post and other cereal companies, they need to avoid exactly what it is we're trying to force them to plant. They need to avoid that in order to keep their environments clean. And I just don't understand why this has come up all of a sudden and why we're making it difficult for them to operate their business where they've been operating for a long time.
Okay. So that wasn't a question, it was more of a statement.
Yeah, I
Okay.
guess. Well, the question is,
I'd be glad to respond to that, Margaret. It's a site plan requirement to have landscaping. And they've basically added on to the building. They're adding construction and remodeling the building. And so it's a requirement that they need to have a site plan approval with landscape. So it's not like we are going imposing something that's not imposed on other businesses. The variance is based upon their need for to deal with practical difficulties in their site, which requires a variance from the landscaping requirement. And accordingly, we're recommending approval subject to relocation of the density to another portion of the site away from the building that would be impacted.
Well, you know, I would like to urge us to defer to their expertise. They seem very well informed on the subject. So that's my my feelings about that. So thank you.
Okay. Is the petitioner here or the petitioner's?
Mary Beth, I've got a quick question.
Oh, sorry, Bernie.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I understand where Larry's coming from and Margaret, and this is my pitch for a hearing officer at some point. These, you know, a variance to the ordinance is necessary, and the hearing officer might make this process a little bit easier. The one thing I didn't see in the petitioner's letter, and Larry answered the question, but so I'm assuming that they are stating that they want the variance due to practical difficulties. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's all I got.
All right. And is the petitioner or the representative here, and would they like to speak?
Yes, I'm Bill Riggert, here to represent Baxter this evening in this particular matter. And I think that Rebecca's done a fine job presenting the information. While we were developing the plans, we did not take into consideration the environmental concerns that Baxter has for their facility.
I'm sorry, I failed to swear you in. I was thinking you were an attorney.
My apologies.
Okay. All right. No, okay. My apologies. I was thinking as a representative, you might have been an attorney. My apologies. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Thank you, sir.
You're
You can
welcome.
proceed.
Very good. Thank you. So we probably should have known more about the environmental concerns that Baxter had when we developed the plans and submitted them to planning for review and approval. At this point, it would be great if we wouldn't have to do the plantings, but if it's necessary, we can certainly find a place on the campus to do the planting and present that in a new landscape plan for consideration by planning staff. And I can try to address any questions you may have.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Riggert?
I've got two quick questions. The first one, practical difficulties, is that the issue here? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, BG, it is.
Okay, so then has there been a plan laying out where the possible areas are for the plantings, or do you guys think that it's going to be difficult to find areas where the plantings can go?
So no, we have not prepared a plan yet as a result of this. And we need to take and do a site investigation to determine where we can get the plantings and keep them far enough away from their facilities. And that's something we haven't done yet, but we will do that as part of this request.
The reason why I was asking that question is if there wasn't an area where it was feasible, then there may have been room to not do the plantings at all from the BZA standpoint, but that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Margaret, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak on behalf of this petition? Seeing none, is there anyone here that would like to speak against this petition? Seeing none, do you have a motion? Margaret?
Okay, in the matter of VAR-21-59, interior landscaping from chapter 830, I would like to recommend that we approve the landscaping design standards variance from chapter 830. And also that the builder and the company and Mr. Riggert work with the plan commission to work out the details of the planting so that we don't necessarily have to come before the plan commission again, or the BZA again. But I think that that it's certainly workable.
I'll second the motion. Call the roll, Larry. You're on mute, Larry.
Okay. The vote is on variance 21-59 request, Baxter Interior Landscaping to chapter 830 from the landscaping requirements. The motion is to approve the variance based upon the conditions of the staff report. Again, a yes vote is a vote to approve the variance based upon practical difficulties.
Larry,
yes.
can you confirm, is there a condition of approval that they do plant elsewhere, or that we didn't include that condition because it's optional?
I think it's a condition.
That was a condition of approval, I believe. Correct,
Well,
Margaret?
my motion was to make it more of a conversation between planning and Baxter rather than a condition here, between planning staff and Baxter, and to not make it a formal condition as they work. I mean, this condition, this required plantings equivalent to 260 D value elsewhere on the site, it may turn out that that's not workable for the plans and for the site. And I'd like to eliminate the requirement, just a suggestion that those plantings equivalent to 260 D value elsewhere on the site take place.
If it's a suggestion, they will not be obligated to do it. So,
Bernie, can you help me out there with that, how that could be worded?
Well, I'm not sure I agree with you, Margaret, so probably not.
Okay.
Yeah, I misunderstood.
No, here's my
as well.
question. How large is the footprint of the site that we're talking about? Is this the entire Baxter property there at Curry Pike?
Well,
I
actually,
didn't see any boundary lines on the drawing, so I'm assuming that's all one property.
yes, it is. And as you're probably aware that this is just one building of several on what I call a campus.
Mhm. So the way I understood staff's recommendation is that anywhere on the Baxter property, this D value could be achieved. And that's why I asked the petitioner's representative if they've examined whether or not it's possible. And I think that we need to, my opinion is we need to stick with staff's recommendation with the condition, just because I think it puts staff in a position where they're going to be forced to decide whether or not plantings can or can't go somewhere based on something that's out of their expertise.
Okay, well,
Those are my points.
I'm going to remove my motion, and if somebody else would like to make the motion, that would be great.
I can make it, Mary Beth.
Okay, thank you, Bernie.
In the matter of VAR-21-59, this is the Baxter Interior Landscaping variance to chapter 833 located on Curry Pike. I move that we approve the variance from chapter 830 based on the findings of fact and the fact that practical difficulties have been met, subject to the following condition: that the petitioner agree to plant the required plantings equivalent to 260 D value elsewhere on the site. The petitioner must submit to staff a new landscaping plan that shows the planting relocations, and that will be prior to occupancy permit. Larry, is that correct?
yes, or a land use certificate. We're at.
Excuse me. Thank you. A land use certificate, prior to a land use certificate being granted.
Second that.
Okay, the motion is on variance number 21-59. The Baxter variance from interior landscaping standards from chapter 830. The motion is to approve the variance based upon practical difficulties, but to require the petitioner to plant the required plantings equivalent to 260D value elsewhere on the entire Baxter site. The petitioner will submit to staff a new landscaping plan that shows the planting relocations that meet the required D value. Again, the motion is to approve the variance with the condition as set forth. Mary Beth Kismarchik,
Yes.
Clemens,
Yes.
Bernie Garitas.
Yes.
The motion is approved with the conditions set forth.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have a good evening.
Thank you.
Next up, we have case number VAR-21-60. And that's you, Ann.
Thank you, Mary Beth. So this is one variance, two subsets of design standard requests. So this is a lot size and also lot width variance request from chapter 804. So the property is 1.19 acres and it's located in Polk Township at 6400 East Allens Creek Road. So on the left, we have a pictometry photo. This is looking east at the property. So there's currently a single family residence existing on the property. So the petitioners have stated that the home is in disrepair and needs to be demolished. Their intent is to sell the property in the future, but they would like to, I spoke with the petitioners more than a year ago about the property. So their intent is to obtain these variances to then make it more attractive to a potential buyer. If a buyer was to purchase the property, they would face these exact same two variance requests if they did want to rebuild or demo the house. So, potentially a interested buyer could get the property and fix the home, but depending on the state, I don't think it's been technically condemned, but they've stated that it should be demolished. So that's the intent here. So the property is zoned forest reserve, which has a minimum requirement of 5 acres. Let's see. So a couple of site photos. The property looks at an RV park to the north. Quick little GIS analysis of existing parcels in the area that are under 5 acres. With this parcel size map, I did exclude anything less than 0.5 acres just because we did have some right-of-way, small areas that had been dedicated to the county, so they were going to show up. So if you just wonder why it's 0.5 to 5 acres, that's why. So the areas that are residential that have been developed and are existing, there are a few of them in the area that have been built out and developed with single family residences. So this not too unusual that it exists without being 5 acres. So on the left, we have a petitioner letter. I do want to note they did mention in their letter building a detached, wanting approval for a future owner to build a detached 2-car garage. We've explained to the petitioner that we cannot approve a future structure, that that structure would be approved if it met setbacks, and if the property had a minimum lot size and minimum lot width. So they understand that this is just those 2 variances. It is not approving any structures in the future. On the right is their existing site plan that they would like to use for a future demolition permit. So staff is recommending approval of the minimum lot size and minimum lot width design standard variances from Chapter 804 based on the findings of fact and subject to the Monroe County Highway and MS coordinator reports. Does anybody have any questions?
Does the board have any questions for Ann? Nope. Okay. Is the petitioner here and would they like to speak? Mr. Taylor?
I am here, and I really have nothing to add to other than the fact that we have spent an excessive amount of time trying to correct the areas.
Actually, if you're going to actually speak, I will need to swear you in, Mr. Taylor.
Okay.
Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just want to say that we're just trying to improve the area of the property, and we've cleaned up a lot at this point. That home, if we were able to remove it, would be a better position for the neighborhood as well as the campground across the street. That is all I have.
Okay, does this board have any questions for the petitioner? Nope. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak on behalf of this petition? Is there anyone here that would
Mary
like
Beth,
to
it looks like Todd is wanting to speak in.
Oh, I'm
favor?
sorry, I missed that, Todd. Can you unmute yourself?
Sure, thank you.
Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, sir?
I do.
All right, you may proceed.
In the aerial photograph that was taken facing east, I am the property owner directly to the south of Mr. Taylor's property. And I would like to wholeheartedly endorse his petition. He's been a great neighbor. He's done a lot to clean up this property since he acquired it. It was a terrible eyesore for the area. And I appreciate the efforts that he's gone to clean this property up. I would certainly like to see him be able to sell the property with the point of somebody being able to construct a home on it in the future, simply because leaving this property as simply a vacant lot would do a disservice to the area. So I would really look forward to a neighbor being able to purchase this and build a single family home there.
Thank you, sir. All right. Anyone else who would like to speak on behalf of this petition? Okay. Seeing none, is there anyone here that would like to speak against this petition? Seeing none, does someone have a motion ready?
Well, I move that we approve the standards for the design standards variance for VAR -21-60. Well, I guess I don't have it completely ready, but the criteria based on the findings of fact and subject to the Monroe County Highway and MS4 coordinator reports. So this is to approve the minimum lot size and minimum lot width design standards variance.
I'll second that.
Okay, I will call the roll on variance number 21-60, both A and B. And the motion will be, the vote will be on approving both variances, the minimum lot size and minimum lot width variances respectively, A and B. Design standards variance from 804 based on the finding of fact and subject to the Monroe County Highway and MS4 coordinators report. Again, a vote in favor is a vote to approve both variances. Margaret Clements?
Yes.
Bernie Garitas?
Yes.
Mary Beth Marchek?
Yes.
Both variances are approved by a 3-0 vote.
Okay. Next up, we have case number VAR-21-61A and VAR-21-61 4-61B, and that is Tammy.
So Tammy's actually not here tonight, so Larry and I are gonna go ahead and go over this one together. This is the Dietz front yard setback and the Dietz buildable area variances to chapter 804. And the property is located at 8536 North Blue Heron Road. And the zoning for this property is suburban residential. So the petitioner is requesting 2 design standards variances for 15% slope as well as the front yard setback. As you'll note in the packet, this is not the first time that they've received or requested a variance to the front yard setback. So this request in particular is to allow for an addition to a single family residence. They're requesting a 980 square foot footprint 2-story addition for a total of 1,470 square foot addition to the home. So the buildable area requirements state that structures should be located on slopes less than 15%. The proposed location for this addition exceeds slopes greater than 25, even 35% slope. Staff was unable to issue a waiver when this residential permit came through. So this is why they're here tonight for asking for a variance. The front yard setback is 25 feet from right of way, and the home encroaches currently 7.66 feet into the setback. The addition, although it's on the back side of the home, brings into play the home that's pre-existing non-conforming. So the home's currently on a septic. The health department has no record of the septic, and I believe that the petitioner was unwilling to share a permit with us but before this variance, but it would be potentially required before the ILP could be issued. So if a variance is approved, the permit request for R-21-771 could be issued. So again, the history on this site, they were granted a front setback on May 7th, 2014, and that was in order to add a detached garage. Discussion from the minutes included that the slopes on this lot were a supporting factor for allowing that variance, and that it was quoted, there's probably not anywhere on this lot outside of the setback you could actually place a structure on. So here's the location here, very northeastern portion of the county. As you could tell, there are some slopes on this property, and it's currently built out with a single family residence. We put together a slope map that even further shows the percent slope that we're discussing here. So you can even see kind of the upper 20s, 30s, and even possibly 40% slope on this property. So it's a dead end road here, and you could kind of see the footprint of the encroachment there of the home. So here's some pictometry imagery of the property, as well as some site photos. So there's the garage and the home. And this is the location where the addition would be located. The petitioner's representative did submit a letter to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And here is the site map or site plan that we were given for the variance request. So the addition would be 14 feet by 35 feet. And here is a look at the construction plans of what the addition would include. And it stated that there would be just an office space, kitchen, and that there's an existing bedroom kind of off to the side. So no addition of bedrooms in this case. So staff is recommending on this one a denial for both the buildable area as well as the front setback. And some of the reasoning for that is that there are no practical difficulties in the current use of the site, and that a self-created hardship was established in 2015 when a detached garage was added to the property. And additionally, one concern, there's been no review by the health department to verify the septic location for the system. And so we don't want the proposed addition to have any conflicts with the separation distances or anything like that. Larry, would you like to add anything to this case as well?
The only thing I'll say is this is a very small lot. There's very limited space, if any, to place a septic system, and we have no idea where it is. There's a supposed location of the septic system shown on the site map, but as you can see, the scale is inadequate to really address any type of a septic tank with a finger system. And again, this is a 60 to 70-year-old house, and we have no record that the septic system has ever been updated. We just basically can't make a recommendation of approval if we don't know where the infrastructure on the site is and that it's functioning to allow additional square footage to be built in the house.
Okay, does the board have any questions for Larry or Jackie?
I've got maybe two questions. One, Jackie, could you go, I know where the garage was added, more of an aerial view. Yeah, the garage, more of an aerial view. Can you show me the two locations? There's a screened porch and then additional living quarters being added for 490 square feet each. Is that correct?
Yes, it's being added to the backside.
Okay.
here.
So the entire 980 square feet are being added to the backside of the lake on the lake frontage.
Correct.
Okay. I mean, my first reaction is with the garage, I don't know I don't necessarily consider that as a self-created hardship. I understand where staff is coming from. That's a flat spot that they decided to put the garage on instead of maybe additional living quarters. But I think from the lake standpoint and just from having a garage, I think that's a reasonable build to have a garage with your home. Am I correct that was the variance that was done before, Jackie? The garage up by the road?
Yes, Bernie.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I'm leaning kind of towards staff, and I'm not getting in an area where we have to, if we can't if it doesn't require that a septic system be located and looked at with the building permit process, then I'm not so sure that that I feel comfortable asking for that, other than just like Jackie said, if we grant the variance and it gets into some of the lines coming out of the house to the septic field, or the septic field is somehow in the way, then we would just be back here again. And I don't know, I'd like to hear more about that from the petitioner, about the septic and where it's located and why they've located it on the map where they think it is. So that's all I've got for now. Thanks, Mary Beth.
All right, Margaret, do you have any questions for Jackie or Larry? Okay,
No.
Thank you. Is Mr. McCardle here?
Yes, I'm here. Can everyone hear me?
Yes. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, sir, go ahead.
Well, the line exits the house, and it's out of our way where it's located. I believe it would be, as you're looking at the whole site plan, it'd be to the right of the house. It goes out that right wall and up the ridge to the tank and field. So we know where it is, but we can't, we don't have any record of when it was put in. So, but the fact that we're not adding we took a bedroom off of this in the pre-design stage so that the septic would not be an issue. And I agree with Mr. Zertas that the garage setback, I really don't think it has any bearing on what we're trying to do here. We're basically adding a kitchen to the back of this house. The So as far as the septic goes, if you want to require us to have it located, to do any kind of verification, we're happy to do that. But I don't really see how has any effect on whether or not we add. We're not adding any bedrooms. We're not adding a sink anywhere. Everything is as is where is. We're not adding another toilet or anything like that.
Sorry, Mary Beth.
No, go ahead, Bernie.
Well, I'm wondering is that a foundation that you're pouring, or how are you building that?
It would be in essence, a basement, poured basement walls.
Okay.
And then the walkout wall that faces the lake would be, it can be a framed wall because it'll be out of the ground. But the side walls will be poured concrete, and then whatever load-bearing points, there may be 2 posts underneath as well. And it's just an unfinished basement to put his utilities, the heating, cooling equipment, etc.
And then explain and maybe you did and I just missed it, but explain the porch to me.
The porch of
the screened porch. Isn't that being added as well? A screened 490-foot addition and then a screened in porch for 490 feet?
No, there's no screened in porch. It's just a deck. It's going to be a room addition, the length of the house, coming out 14 feet, or the width of the house, going back 14 feet, and then a deck off of that. I'm not sure we may be confusing the deck with a screened porch, and there is no screened porch.
Dave, can you confirm that this deck would have to be removed in order to accommodate the addition?
Oh, yes, that has to go.
What is the total distance of the deck in addition to the addition?
14 and 28 feet out.
So
to the outside edge of the deck.
So be going 28 feet into the front or into the lakeside.
Correct. And the deck could be also, if we had to build it similar to the one that's there now, we could set posts at 12 feet if you wanted to keep us back, set posts at 12 feet instead of 14 feet I don't know if that matters to you or not, but it's negotiable, all of it.
Right, and that's what, just so the public's clear, I understand the petition. I thought I read screened in porch, but it was deck. So excuse me, just to be clear. Okay. So the existing deck will be removed, an addition will go on, and then a deck of 490 feet would be put on the lake side of the home, correct?
Correct. Okay. So basically that deck line is getting moved out toward the lake 14 feet.
Mm-hmm. And the existing septic service, the actual lines coming out of the home, could you put the plat of survey up there again, Jackie? Make sure I get my directions right. So yeah, it comes off I'll just say for purposes of the direction of that drawing, it comes out to the east on that short side of the home and then goes out. So that's why you don't think any of the pipes or any of the plumbing that are coming out of the house will.
No, I mean, I can tell it's a gravity fed
foundation.
I can tell it's a gravity fed system, and I can tell where it exits the house. And that's all I physically could tell. And I know where the tank is, but that's all I can tell you for sure. Because I'd have, we'd have to dig it up to get any evidence of it.
Right, you want to do that.
And
Well,
I'm not positive on how old that house is. I don't think it was 50s, but I know the owner's here. If that's pertinent, we could ask him.
yeah, I don't need to know anything else about that. I guess on these, I'll just say it, on these cases, it's 0.55 acres, and it looks like there are several hundred feet or over 100 feet between the build and the lake. And I mean, I just kind of lean towards if a person can augment their home and still live there, that, and I want to hear from anybody in the area that remonstrators, but we can contain some of this, I think. So that's all I've got. I'm just kind of thinking out loud, Mary Beth. I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
I might, Mary Beth, if I could add that just downhill of the new deck, that we're going to clear some trees, so the ground would go from just a wooded floor of the yard to sod. So we're improving the potential runoff of the site by that alone. And so, I feel like we can do this and improve the site even better from everyone's standpoint.
Mary Beth, can I ask one more question? Is the deck going to be posts as the ones that we're looking at now?
Basically, yes.
Okay. Well, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Any further questions for Mr. McCardle? Is there anyone else here that would like to
Margaret.
speak on?
Sorry, Margaret has her hand raised.
I'm sorry, Margaret.
That's okay. I think when we come back to discuss it among ourselves, then that will be when I raise my question or discussion.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak on behalf of this petition?
Hi, it's Paul and Shelley. It's our house. Can I say something?
I need to swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right. Yes. Go ahead, sir.
Thanks for having us. You can see in this one picture here, or maybe it's the other one here. This little spot down here is the crawl space where all the mechanicals are under there. So my hot water heater, my furnace, everything that needs to be serviced, I have to crawl under there. It's like a 3-foot door, and inside it's about 4 feet tall. And when I bought the place in 1996, we bought it and it was new. And now it's 25 years later, and for me to get under there is difficult. And so trying to make the kitchen to where the end of this deck is, and then take the deck out just the same size as it was before. The house is small, our family's growing, and we're getting older, and it's really difficult for us. So that's the main reason for this. We're not adding a bedroom. We tried to, but you guys denied that. We're not adding a bathroom. We're not adding a sink. I do know where the septic system is, and this work is nowhere near where that is. And so I appreciate you giving us the time. We've owned the place for 25 years. It's time for us to expand and make it better. And we just really need your help.
Does the board have any questions for Paul? No? Okay. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak on behalf of this petition?
Mary Beth, can I just clarify that if the petitioner does wish to put a bedroom or keep the bedroom in the footprint under their residential permit, they can do so. It just involves the septic system, which I'm not sure that they have the permit for, so, or they have record of it.
Jackie, could you repeat that? Are you saying that in this addition, if they would add a bathroom, or pardon me, if they would add a bedroom, that it would go under the umbrella of an inspection by the Monroe County Health Department?
If they're adding a bedroom, then it does trigger the chapter 365, which is the health code, which does involve either a septic, inspection, or if there's no record of the permit, in some cases, it involves an installation of a new system.
Right. I think you stated it better than me. Added a bedroom. I said in the addition, but actually anywhere within the dwelling or in the garage if they added a bedroom. So yeah, thank you for that, Jackie.
Okay.
Can I add one more thing, please? This is a question for Paul and Shelley, the owners. Could you repeat, how old do you know that the house is?
Well, we bought it in 1996, brand new. And it was from the floor up, all brand new construction.
Then the point I want to make is that we can probably assume that it's not that old a house, that it's got a very good septic field. I mean, I know we have no proof, but it's not that old.
Well, if you can go to the other picture where you show me where you drew the lines for the septic, I'll show you where it is. Maybe it's a different picture. Okay, so there's a walkway that goes down to the lake. We have a clean out right here. And all our pipes come out this way and then down the path. And Reed Septic put it in. They've been there. Yeah, it comes down. Yeah, go back. Now go back a picture wise. I'll show you where it is.
Sure. So we aren't able to see the mouse on your screen. So,
oh, how do I do that then?
So I have to just show where it is, and I don't know if I quite understand where you're saying.
Okay, yeah, the back one, where was a picture. There it is. So if you see this pathway, so you can kind of see the red in this picture. The septic comes out to the left of the home and goes down the field. So all this work that we're trying to do behind the house has nothing to do with septic system. And this is a weekend place for us. We live in Indianapolis. We are there very, on the weekends. This is not a heavy use in the summer place, but it needs some work. It's 25 years old since we bought it. And we're just trying to make our kitchen bigger. And we get the rules. We wanted a new bedroom and you said no, so we get that. But all we're trying to do is make the kitchen bigger, which then makes the deck a little bit bigger. So I, again, appreciate your time.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Dietz, you mentioned that you had the contractor who put the septic tank in?
Yeah, it's Reed Septic. They put it in, and we called them when we bought the place in 96 and said we wanted it inspected, and they came out and they dug the hole and it was perfect. And they come back on an occasion. It's never been pumped because we're just not there that often. And they said it's in perfect working condition. We did put the clean out just a couple of years ago to make it easier. And that guy says it's in great shape. So it has not been a problem. And in addition to that, we are 450 feet from the water. We're not 100 feet from the water. We're 150 yards from the water. We're way up. And so, again, we're not trying to get our property on the waterfront. We're just trying to make our kitchen bigger. So I know I've said that before.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
This is far. If you guys come over for barbecue, it's a hike. So,
Okay, thank you, sir. Does the board have any more questions for Mr. McArdle or Mr. Diaz? No? Is there anyone else here that would like to speak on behalf of this petition? Is there anyone here that wishes to speak against this petition? Seeing none, does one of my fellow board members have a motion ready?
I'd like an opportunity now to
Oh,
discuss.
yeah,
this.
I'm sorry, yeah.
So during the discussion, really the slope requirements have nothing to do with the distance to the lake and whether or not, whether or not, it may seem like we're trying to prevent you from enjoying your property. But one of the statements that was made by Mr. McArdle was that vegetation was going to be removed and sod put down. And those are exactly our concerns, is the disturbance of the soil because of erosion problems that might then develop, and that's why we have these requirements that prevent people from building on slopes greater than 18%. So I don't think we addressed during the discussion, the removal of any vegetation, but that's not really permitted, is it, Mr. Wilson?
Actually, the prohibition against land disturbance and removal of vegetation is only in the eco zones.
I see.
This is a buildable area.
Okay.
Requirement of 15% slope. But I will note that the reason we came up with the 15% slope standard was because the maximum slope in which a septic tank can be located in Indiana is 15% slope. So that's kind of one of the concerns we have with the existing septic tank is it's on steep slopes. And again, if the variance is approved, I would suggest the DCES contact the contractor who put in the septic system to make sure there was a permit, or at least some kind of site drawings or so on, which show that there is an adequate finger system in addition to a tank to actually treat the effluent. And it's not just, even though it's being used as a weekend house now, a lot of these houses are being converted to year-round residences. And so we do have a concern in the long term that to protect the water quality of the lake, that every house has a working and viable septic system.
Thank you, Larry.
Jackie, can I see, sorry, Mary Beth or Margaret, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead, Bernie.
Can I see the slope map again? Okay. Okay. I mean, my take on most of these, and I think I've been pretty consistent, is, there's an existing home there that, in my opinion, that people live and breathe with, and they grow in, they grow out. It seems like they do understand the fact that the restriction on adding a bedroom is going to require potential more hardship on their septic system than what's there now. The distance to the lake from the disturbance to me does matter, because I think ultimately the erosion, we're trying to protect the waterways. So I think we can manage that. We've done that before. The fact that it's a 490 square foot living addition, they're going to add the 400 or displace the deck. And I don't know what the existing square footage of the deck is now, but that's kind of a displaced distance or displaced area and not a new area. because there's already a deck at the bottom. Now there are going to be posts set for the new deck that are going to be closer to the lake, but the addition to the hard surface area, so to speak, is probably more like 500 or 600 feet, say, instead of the 980. I'm leaning towards putting conditions on this that we can live with, that can be under the county's purview, but I don't know that I'm ready to get into this, to the septic question or not, because they're not adding a bedroom, and for obvious reasons, I think. So, I mean, again, if somebody's got a home and they just want to live and breathe and work within it and work without it, the petitioner's statement of being able to get to the mechanical areas and work within the home and not just sell it or get rid of it or not appreciate coming down to the lake limit and enjoying it. To me, those are valid points. I'm leaning towards a motion of approval with some conditions, and I'm not trying to sway Mary Beth or Margaret. I'm just trying to discuss it out loud that, I think this is a.
Well, you want
continued use
to
of
go
an
ahead and
existing
make
structure.
that motion,
I can.
Bernie?
Yes, I can. Thanks, Mary Beth. All right, in the matter of VAR-21-61A and VAR-21-61B, Deets front yard setback to chapter 804, Deets buildable area, parentheses, 15% slope variance to chapter 804. This is at 8536 Blue Heron Drive. I move approval on both variances based on practical difficulties, based on the staff report, the findings of fact, and that a site plan and erosion control plan by an Indiana licensed land surveyor and engineer be prepared and approved by staff and the MS4 operator. That does not include a inspection on the septic permit, or pardon me, the septic field, and that all disturbed areas shown on the site and erosion control plan be relayed with sod prior to the occupancy permit, such that the erosion can be mitigated and not rely on just seed for the revegetation where the disturbance may occur. That's it.
Okay, is anybody seconding this motion?
I'm sorry, I don't think I am on this one.
Okay. Motion dies for lack of a second. That's correct, right? Okay. Margaret, do you have a motion you would like to make?
I don't.
Okay.
Margaret, if I, thinking about the amount of disturbance between the lake and the additions, just to confirm what the petitioner stated, if I added that the disturbance for the deck addition be by post and not by an excavated foundation wall, does that help?
The problem that I'm having is that, we have these restrictions for a reason. And it seems like we're not adhering to them, that, people see a structure and they think that, well, they like the structure, but they'd like to add on to it and then encroach on the area that's not to be encroached upon. And I just am, I see the temptation is there all over the county to build on slopes that should not be built upon. And I am having a hard time with it, you know?
Well, and I agree with that. I see the Dietzes are people that have lived there since 96. And a lot of these requirements have changed since 96. And like I said before, and I'm not trying to talk anybody into it. I'm just trying to be clear on my rationale, because I don't want to see this house built and the alternate may be that they build somewhere else. It's on a smaller lot. It's closer to the lake, et cetera, et cetera. But, the rules have changed since they bought this place. If they had just bought it last year and had come and said, you know what, we live there, we decided we need to add on, that's a little bit different story. But again, they're just trying to live within the house that they have and adjust to the rules as best they can. So that's all. I got my motion.
I'd like to ask Mary Beth how you're thinking about it.
I tend to agree with you, Margaret. These rules are here for a reason. And yeah, I tend to agree with Margaret on this one. What do we do? Do we continue with this until we have more board members, or what do we do?
I would make a suggestion, since it appears that we're not going to have a majority vote either way. It has to be unanimous, that the board just move to continue it to the next meeting. That will give the Dietzes opportunity to provide more evidence in regard to the location of the septic tank, and try to address those concerns that have been expressed, and maybe come up with construction plans that will show how the disturbance of the soil will be minimal. But again, all three of you have to approve or deny the variance for it to be concluded tonight. So I would suggest, perhaps the way it sounds, that a continuous next meeting would be appropriate.
Okay, I can do that. I think that's sound. I think that's sound advice, Larry.
Yes.
Sorry to jump in, Mary Beth, but I know
That's okay. Go ahead and make the motion, or I will.
You're both taskmasters on keeping the meetings going. In regard to variance or VAR 2161A and VAR 2161B, I move that we forward this. We continue this petition to the next BZA meeting, which is in December. Do we need a date for that, Larry?
You're muted.
December 1st.
The December 1st, 2021 regularly scheduled Board of Zoning Appeals meeting.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, and I did have the December 1st date. If I hadn't been mooted, I would have jumped ahead of Jackie. Again, the motion is to continue variance 21-61A and 2161B to the December 1st meeting of the BZA. A vote in favor is a vote for the continuance. At that time, hopefully we'll have 4 or 5 members, so we will be able to get a majority vote one way or the other. Margaret Clemens?
Yes.
Garitas?
Yes.
Larry Smarchek?
Yes.
The motion to continue is approved by a 3-0 vote.
Okay, next up we have case number VAR-21-62, and that is Ann.
Mary Beth, Larry and I are also going to tag team this one a little bit, just because it's a use variance, and Ann is also welcome to jump in, and Larry as well. But I'll go ahead and introduce it. So this is a use variance for a tattoo studio. The location of the property is at 2860 East Moffett Lane. It's 1.27 acres, and the property currently contains a single-family residence. It's zoned suburban residential and Eco 3. So the request is for a use variance to allow for a tattoo studio. The tattoo studio use is currently not permitted in any zoning district according to the zoning ordinance. So that is the reasoning behind the use variance request. So just a reminder to the Board of Zoning Appeals members, the standards for approving a use variance are different than the standards for approving a design standards variance. And we get so few of these per year that we just want to make sure that it's clear on the standards of which you're making a recommendation and doing the review. So you'll see on the screen that according to 812-5, the board must find that, and then you have A through E on the screen. What we're going to be talking mostly about tonight is D, which is a strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will constitute an unnecessary hardship if applied to the property for which the variance is sought. The definition for unnecessary hardship located in the zoning ordinance as well is that there's a result of significant injury, economic injury that arises from the strict application of this ordinance to the conditions of a particular existing parcel of property, effectively deprives the parcel owner of all reasonable economic use of the parcel, and is clearly more significant than compliance cost or practical difficulties. So these are all three have to be true in order for there to constitute an unnecessary hardship. So these are the permitted uses in the suburban residential zoning district. The single family residential use is highlighted in yellow because there's an existing and usable being used single family residence on the lot. The petitioner has submitted an exhibit to a letter, and in the packet, you'll also find a little bit of background of the petitioner's request to the planning department. On the right side, you'll see that the property zoning map here is suburban residential, and there's neighboring suburban residentially zoned properties as well as a pre-existing business lot across the street. So here is an aerial of the property. There was a recent expansion of the home within the last few years, and it did involve an upgrade of the septic system. The petitioner's request for the use variance would utilize the existing single-family residence as stated in Exhibit 2, their petitioner letter. So although we do not, the Monroe County ordinance does not have a definition or a use for a tattoo studio, we did look around to other ordinances and found that the city of Bloomington actually does have a tattoo use, and they do have somewhat of a definition, but they are able to only allow that in zones that are mixed use, including the downtown corridor or medium scale, and none of the residential zones. So the Indiana State Board of Health also regulates tattoo and body piercings. So the recommendation by staff for this variance request for a use variance is to deny the use variance based on the findings of fact, and primarily because there's no substantial evidence that the property cannot be utilized under one of the permitted low intensity uses in the SR district, namely the single family residential use, and therefore does not meet the criteria under Chapter 812. So I will take any questions that the board may have. Larry, do you want to add anything to this, or Ann?
I do not.
Ann, anything to add?
She may have stepped away for just a second, but I'll include her in as well. Oh, there we go.
Oh, she was muted.
Yep, no, I have nothing to add.
Okay. Does the board have any questions for Jackie?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mary Beth. I've just got, I think, a couple. Jackie, thanks for discussing the use question, and that's wrong. So this will be a home-based business. Am I understanding that properly?
Yes.
So actually, this would be its own use if permitted. So our home-based business and home occupation standards. So let me go back to the list of permitted uses in SR. Home occupation is only permitted, not home-based business. But Larry, do you want to talk a little bit about the history of the site and the?
Yeah, as Jackie said, a home-based business is not a permitted use in the SR zone, only home occupation. And home occupation, Mr. Rio did submit a request for a use determination as to his use being a home occupation. We determined it was not a home occupation primarily due to the amount of customer visitation occurring on the site, or it will be open to for appointments 6 hours a day with people visiting the site. And we felt that customers coming to a site in a residential zone on a daily basis was inconsistent with the definition of suburban residential. We typically see home occupation with no interaction with the public at all. Occasionally there will be drop-offs of primarily, we've had some gunsmith home occupations recently where people occasionally will drop by, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 times a month, drop by something to have them worked on or do it by mail. We have other home occupations that are totally without any contact from people coming on site. And the primary concern, the home occupation was not approved, was that there would be customers coming to the site on a daily basis based upon the submitted request for use termination.
Okay, that was helpful. And just so I'm clear, that you gave that background because the home occupation was an initial discussion staff had with the petitioner, but the home occupation is not currently what we're reviewing. Is that correct?
It's a use variance.
Okay.
Utilize the residential site as a tattoo studio. Again, we do not have the tattoo studio use in any district in our ordinance.
I have a question. A beauty salon, would that be permitted in a place like this?
In fact, I used since we did not have a tattoo use variance or tattoo studio variance, or tattoo studio use in our ordinance, in the use determination, I determined it was similar to a barber shop or a beauty salon. And neither of those would meet the criteria because they have customers coming to and from the house on an ongoing basis.
All right, thank you, Larry. Any further questions for staff?
Yeah, I do. Another question. So the petitioner may or does own this house. I mean, I'm trying to understand if basically we're talking about a personal services business in the neighborhood. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I'm not sure how we would classify. We call it personal services. Barbershop and beauty salon are basically personal services in our zoning ordinance.
Okay. Thanks. I'm done, Mary Beth. I'll wait to hear from everybody else.
You're fine. You're fine. Any questions from you, Margaret?
I don't. I mean, I don't have any questions. I just, concerned about the traffic. That's all.
Well, let me let's talk to the petitioner.
Yeah.
Is the petitioner here, and would they like to speak?
I am here.
All right. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Thank you, sir. You may state your name, please.
John Rio.
John, you may proceed.
Okay. The traffic, say for a barber shop, you got to cut a lot of hair to make any money. And with tattooing, I only need to tattoo a couple of people a day. So there's not going to be any walk-in business. There's no reason for anybody to just stop in. That's why I wanted to do it in my home, is to stop that kind of stuff. I like working on a more personal level and with fewer people and less distractions. So the traffic is not even going to be what my neighbors even have when they have visitors.
Okay, I think he answered your question, Margaret. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us, John?
I don't think so. I'm not changing anything about the property. There's no way to even tell that would be a business here. Just very private that's what I was looking for in the studio.
That property has been recently remodeled, has it not? It suffered a fire a while back.
Right.
And had a whole new garage and a lovely new driveway put in it. I drive by it every day. So I drive, well, not every day anymore, but I used to drive by it every day, and anytime I go into town, I drive by it. So, but yes, they've done a lot of work on that home. And so the studio would be around back of the building,
Correct.
and there is parking out behind there, I assume, right?
Yes. Mhm.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Rio? Margaret, none?
No.
Okay. Is there anyone else here that wishes to speak on behalf of this petition? I'm not seeing anybody. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against this petition? Not seeing anybody. At this point, are we ready for a motion, Margaret or Bernie?
Well, with regard to VAR 21 62, I move that we deny the use variance for a tattoo studio to chapter 802 based on the findings of fact. There's really no substantial evidence that the property cannot be utilized under one of the permitted low intensity uses listed in the SR zoning district. And so it does not meet the criteria of 812-5.
And are you going to second this, Bernie, or are we going to end up continuing this one too?
I'll second it.
I'm going to call the roll, Larry.
I will call the roll on variance 21-62, which is the Rio Tattoo Studio use variance in chapter 802 for the property located at 2860 East Moffett Lane. Owner Jason Delaney. Again, the motion is to deny the use variance based upon the findings of fact, that there's no substantial evidence presented that the property cannot be utilized for one of the permitted low intensity uses listed in the SR zoning district, and therefore does not meet the criteria set forth in 812-5-D, which is also the statute, the criteria set forth by Indiana code. Again, motion yes vote is vote to deny the use variance. Again, we need to have unanimous consent or unanimous vote to deny or approve any matter on tonight's agenda. Bernie Garitas.
Yes.
Rebecca Sparchak.
Yes.
Barbara Clemens.
Yes.
The use variance is denied.
I'm sorry, Mr. Rio. You have a good evening.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have case number ADR-21-3. And this is something a little different. Larry, tell us about it.
Okay. This is an appeal of a use determination I made in regard to the pre-existing business uses at 5100 South Victor Pike. That's the location of the gasoline station. It's on roughly a 5-acre site adjacent to Indiana 37. The current owner is P&G Associates LLC. And there is the location. The property was zoned limited business, and the records show that the gas station was actually constructed somewhere in the early 90s, it appears, and being operating approximately 1991, 1992, as far as I can tell from the records. And at the time, the property was located where it's located was under the 1986 zoning ordinance, which is not something I think we've heard a lot about. But the 1986 zoning ordinance zoned the property as limited business. in the limited business zone was designed to allow certain limited businesses that would be appropriate adjacent to residential areas. And if we can go on down, you can see the location in red on the there. I will note too that we've had some other cases involving the sites across the road in regard to variances and so on. In 1997, when the zoning ordinance was updated, the limited business zone here was changed from limited business to pre-existing use. Okay, basically the board under state statute, the board has the power to hear and determine appeals from any order, requirement, decision, or determination made by the plan director, a staff member, or administrative officer. Anything we do as a planning department, an individual can bring that decision, whether it's a permit denial, whether it's a interpretation, to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And the Board of Zoning Appeals has the power either to affirm or reverse, wholly or partially, any determination made by either the administrator or any member of the staff.
Larry, would you like me to share some of the exhibits from the BZA report that went out?
That'd be great.
Okay.
The map she's currently showing is really what I use to kind of start the analysis of this. This is the 1986 zoning map, which you'll see zone the property as limited business. And what I looked at, the question is what was approved at the time, at least from our viewpoint. The question is what was the approved use for the site? And as far as I can tell, the uses that were permitted under the zoning ordinance was a gasoline station with accessory parking lot to the gasoline station. And the use termination from Mr. Carmen filed the use termination, basically asking that we determined that the pre-existing use for the property was a truck stop. He submitted affidavits from 2 prior owners in regard to the truck stop use. Those affidavits are in the package. In summary, I guess the determination I made was that the only uses that were permitted under the ordinance was a gasoline station and a parking lot, and any other use that took place on the site was not in compliance with the ordinance, and therefore no rights were created by the fact that non-permitted uses took place on the site. And I think that's all I have right now. I may reserve some time for rebuttal, as they say, to Mr. Carmen's presentation. But I think we should let him go ahead and say why they disagree with the analysis I made.
Hey, does anybody have any questions for Larry? Nope. Mr. Carmen. And just so the public is aware, I do not need to swear Mr. Carmen in because he is a lawyer.
That really just doesn't make sense, does it?
I never did to me either, but I try to make sure and abide by it.
Good evening.
Mr. Carmen.
Okay. For the record, I need to note an objection. You have very specific rules of procedure adopted by the BZA, and what we've just gone through violates those rules. Larry should not have been speaking. That is not what the rules allow. It does not allow him to make rebuttal at a later time. And so I would hope as we go through this that we're going to adhere to the rules that you have adopted now. So it did it calls for the chairman to read the initial staff report, to have it read. It did not call for an evidentiary presentation by the director, the person who made the decision that's under appeal. But let's go on to from the petitioner's, the appellant's standpoint. According to Beverly Terry, this business use started in 1988. Whether she's off a year or not, I don't know. That's her sworn statement. That her affidavit is in the packet that was submitted. She based that on that she and her husband, really in his name, bought the property in 1987, and she thought it was the next year that they got the business underway. It was her husband's idea that on the west side of the Bloomington community, there was no fuel stations for diesel fuel. It was his idea to create a truck stop. And I would note that is a bit of a concern to use the word truck stop because it's getting misused. A truck stop in 1987, 1988 has no relationship to the truck stop travel plazas defined in the ordinance, the current county zoning ordinance. That definition was adopted in 2016. And it does a lot of things that this truck stop doesn't do, never do, didn't intend to do, and can't do, from lodging to shower facilities. It's a whole different issue. So I'm a little concerned that we throw around the term truck stop because the planning director, Mr. Wilson, has continued in meetings and even in his write-up on this, identify and compare this use to the Travel Plaza truck stop under the 2016 ordinance, and it has absolutely no relationship to that. And that's I would say that's an inappropriate comparison. But back to the petition. So when Alan Terry started this out there, he had as part of his business model to encourage fuel sales and sales to the convenience store they had there. They, according to Mrs. Terry's sworn statement, they sold a variety of things, some food items. They had a small kitchen, so they had something of an indoor restaurant. They had sold cookware and related things and convenience items. But to promote those sales and promote the fuel sales, he openly catered or solicited truck parking, overnight parking. They could get off the road, sleep there. They would fuel up, buy some food when in the morning when they got started and be on their way. And it was a part of his business model. That use has continued for nearly 30 years, for more than 30 years, depending on whether they started in 88 or 90 or 91, is 30 years plus or minus, because it has continued uninterrupted and unabated. After Mr. Terry sold the business and the property, a few years later, it was purchased by Sunmart Investments. You have in your packet a sworn statement by Bill Thomas, one of the partners in Sunmart Investments, that describes their continuation of the use, including and specifically the overnight truck driver parking. They intentionally continued that business model of encouraging that parking because of what it added in terms of sales, fuel and items through the convenience store. It's difficult to believe that the county has been blissfully unaware of this use for more than 30 years. And if it's not a permitted use, as Mr. Wilson's use determination would assert, then for 30 years, this has been an open and obvious and very public use that was wrongful. And it's been allowed to continue for 30 plus years. That's not logical. But back to the use itself. What is the request for use determination specifically identified the different types of uses all going to the property that believe have been in existence and continuing and believe that are authorized under the pre-business existing zoning that is on this property. This was owned by the county in 1996 as pre-existing business. And that's important. I would submit that under the 1986 ordinance, exactly what we're talking about, and the issue of most importance, I think, to on the use determination was the temporary overnight parking accommodating customers. That is in fact authorized under the 1986 zoning ordinance. Now, the zoning ordinance is in your packet. It's the table of uses in that 1986 ordinance are on pages 92 and 93 of the packet. And when you look at that table of uses, you find under business uses and permitted as uses in the LB zone, which is what Mr. Wilson reports this was zoned, you find the gasoline station use. You find it's gasoline station or gasoline service station. You find grocery store, including the sales of hardware, sundries, bait, etc. You find public parking, and which is going to be an interesting issue for you to examine the definition that it was set out in the director's packet, specifically quoting it, and that is available. We'll get to that in a moment. But you'll find on that list of uses on permitted uses in the LB zone in 1990 on page 93 of your packet that it lists public parking area, public or employee. So then let's go back to the definitions. The response by the planning director to the appeal quotes from two different ordinances about public parking. No ordinance is relevant on this issue except the 1986 ordinance. The use came into existence under the 1986 ordinance, not later ordinance, not to 96, not in 2016. It's the 1986 ordinance that was in place when this use started. And that's the only place that you can go for definition in terms of looking at the table of uses. And you can see, I see they've put up on the screen those pages. You can see the table of uses. But if you go back to the definitional section in the ordinance, it defines the public parking area. And what you find is that it makes the reference to more than 4 automobiles. See if they're going to, it's in section 802. I'm up there on try to move up to, that's fine. We'll still find here in a second. Appreciate whoever's handling the screen, but on section 802 on the definitions, parking, you get to the parking definition. Thank you. Give them a chance to do that, I guess. Yeah, a little bit for, I should give, I think it's page 80, I want to say page 81. I have it right. There we go. One more up. Yeah. So we have parking there. We have parking area public. And then we say it says an area other than the street. We're not talking about a street, we're talking about on the lot, used for the temporary parking, which is exactly what we're talking about, temporary truck parking for more than 4 automobiles and available for public use, whether free, for compensation, or as an accommodation for clients or customers. This is parking as an accommodation to customers, part of the business model. So in the director's response to the appeal, he made a statement that this definition expressly excludes truck parking, and it does not. It does not. There's nothing that says that. In fact, it would appear that the argument from the director is that the reference to 4 automobiles means that automobile is the exclusive allowed parking. If that's correct, which I submit it's not, but if that were correct, that means no vans, no 1/4-ton pickup trucks, no 1/2-ton pickup trucks, no SUVs, nothing but a sedan could be parked there, an automobile. And that's not what the public parking area is. If you go back to the use table and you're not going to find anything there, you will find no attempt to regulate truck parking. There is no truck use in the table of uses except for truck freight terminal, which has nothing to do with what we're talking about. There's no truck parking area. If you take the director's interpretation of the ordinance correctly, truck parking was not allowed any place in Monroe County zoning jurisdiction in 1986 because it's not listed as use any place. And if it doesn't qualify under this public parking, then it's not allowed any place, which again, makes no sense. But if you read the definition and take it for exactly what it says, it's for parking for more than 4 automobiles and parking to accommodate customers, temporary, and that's exactly the use. I would submit that a proper use determination would find that the overnight truck parking for drivers that as an encouragement for fuel sales and sales through the convenience mart was in fact an accommodation for customers and it's a permitted use. But that aside, in 1996, the county blessed this use. It adopted the pre-existing business zone, and we need to look at that. I'd also set out in verbatim in materials, both in the appeal and in the use determination and the response. But the pre-existing business definition from in 1996, and as we acknowledge, concede, and everybody agrees that that's the zone on this property at this time, we can read that. Pre-existing business is defined as that which is primarily intended to accommodate commercial business services uses that were in operation prior to the adoption of the zoning ordinance. Now, this is 1996. So the importance is those commercial business service uses in operation prior to 1996, at the time of adoption of the zoning ordinance. The truck parking was a business service in use at the time of the pre-existing business zoning was adopted and put on this property. This ordinance blessed and authorized the continuation of that. Now, what you have to read into this, if you want to take the use determination submitted by the director, is you have to read into this language that is not there. You have to read into this commercial and business service uses that were in operation prior to the adoption of the zoning ordinance and that were lawfully in use or were lawfully established. And it does not say that. It says that we're in operation. They could have restricted it to those that were properly lawfully in use. If that's the issue from the use determination that by Mr. Wilson, that, well, the truck parking wasn't established as a lawful use, and he said that repeatedly, so that appears to be the issue. There's nothing in the pre-existing business zone that includes that qualification. And if you read that, the whole definition there, it is an extremely broad, extremely liberal expansion of existing uses, those that were in existence at the time. Look at what it goes on to say, that it's the intent of the PB zone to identify locations of commercial activity that are not supported by the comprehensive land use plan. Well, that sounds like what Mr. Wilson is saying. Well, truck parking wasn't supported. It wasn't a permitted use. Even those that were not supported, but where they would continue to exist. The district is identified for the purpose of maintaining commercial activities with business zoning, while at the same time a lot of expansion of new business activities. We're not talking about expansion of a new business. We're talking about continuing an existing business use that's already developed, while at the same time not allowing for the expansion of business activity proximate to the location of BP district. Expansion of business is permitted throughout the lot of record. It's very broad. What we're doing, we could do it any place in the entire parcel. It can be expanded throughout the lot of record. The type of business may change to one of equal or lower intensity. So we're not even limited to what we're doing, anything of equal intensity. This is an extremely broad pro-business, pro-commercial activity. In 1996, the county said, whatever you're doing, if you're doing it now, you can continue. The use determination declaring truck parking, temporary truck parking, the accommodation to customers is not permitted. And in fact, not only did the 1986 ordinance allow it, this definition of pre-existing business that is on the zone now would allow it. Would submit that the appeal should be granted. The use determination issued by Mr. Wilson, the planning director, should be overturned, and the board should find that the overnight truck parking and actually the set of related uses were in fact permitted both in 1986 ordinance and permitted by the pre-existing business, and under either one of those allows it to continue, and the proper use determination should be that the overnight temporary truck parking is a permitted use of the property. Would ask you to vacate the use determination and enter a proper use determination. Thank you.
Does any of the board have questions for Mr. Carmen?
Yeah, quick question. Interesting point about what a truck stop may have been at one time and what and I'll use the words because I don't take exception to how Larry's phrased that, and what a truck stop may be now. Can the petitioner expand on that and why that's relevant to point out the modernization? Maybe I think I understood your train of thought there. Why it matters.
Actually, I don't think that it does because truck stop was not even defined in the 1986
Okay,
ordinance.
that's all I needed because you brought it up and I didn't understand why you brought it up. So I just wanted to understand why it mattered. And I think you said it didn't. And I wasn't swayed one way or the other. I'm not going to get into the points of whether we were out of order with the way the planning director started it. I didn't take exception to the way Mr. Wilson presented it, and I'm not swayed either way by the way we started the meeting. So that's all I've got for now.
Okay. Margaret, do you have any questions for Mr. Kerman?
I do not.
Okay. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on behalf of this petition? Seeing anyone? Is there anyone here that would like to speak against this petition? Mr. Morris?
I don't have the ability to raise my hand on my screen. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Who is this?
This is Tamby Weichel Cassidy.
Tamby, do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, you can go ahead. We'll get to you in just a moment, Jeff.
Okay, so I would like to say a few words about some of what I recall about this property becoming a gas station, because I grew up a house and a half away from it. And my parents owned their property from 1962 until 2004, which was a few years after my dad passed away. My mom moved away, and the gas station was actually one of those reasons. It was always something that came unexpectedly and surprisingly, but was allowed, and people get a lot of use out of it at the gas station and the convenient mart. But the truck issue, they consistently over the years, if you look at some of those overhead photographs, you can see where they expanded more parking, more parking, more parking. There's one of those overhead views. And I apologize, I don't remember what page it's on because I reviewed the packet when it first came out, and I've been trying to help my tenant with a hot water heater this evening. So I was just lucky to be on board here. But I'm just going to speak to, I mean, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And when's it going to stop? I mean, there's one of your overhead views there that shows the dirt where they added more on the northeast part of the property. I remember when they did that because I had moved back to a house, you know, my home close by, and you can see the clay dirt in that picture, that one right there on the screen. You can see the clay dirt where they added to a steep incline there so that they could provide parking for more larger vehicles. I wonder if they ever got permitted to do that, or if they just did it to expand it. I had a conversation with my mom about this a few weeks ago. But like I said, she moved away from there since 2004. She sold her home and the neighbors sold their homes, and they're rentals. So how many rentals really care? The farmhouse across the road, the old farmhouse back in the 80s, had a fire, and it was vacant for years, and then renters again. So it's kind of like now people really do care about what continues to happen there. And it just seems that the truck thing just keeps expanding. And literally my mom set a cup out by her front porch in a 24-hour period to see how much dust accumulated. And it was quite ridiculous. And she went up to the owners at the time and turned it upside down because she was really upset about it. I don't know. I just want to make those comments as to what is going to continue to expand with this thing. When the highway went in, there's actually a pond underneath to the southwest across Victor Pike, and there are underground streams that come up and down. One of them is right in front of the what used to be the marshal's house. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what environmentals have been done as a result of, what happens from there going out. But I do understand they've had the use for a while. It is useful as a gas station. It's useful as a convenient mart. But it's just become more and more of an annoyance. They had some really nice growth of evergreen trees going, and they cut them down. And so then they put in some new lights. And I think that's kind of what brought all this to everyone's attention, was that people that live right across from it are being blasted by brighter LEDs and no buffer of trees to go along with that. Nice thick trees that hide the light. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your time.
Does the board have any questions for Tamby?
I would just like to thank her for her historical perspective and for showing up tonight.
Thank you, Tamby.
Thank you.
Jeff Morris.
Yes.
Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name for the record.
My name is Jeff Morris.
Okay, Jeff, go ahead.
My family and I live across from the street from the gas station, and I want to start by saying that we support the uses of the gas station that the planning department state are permitted. However, we do not support overnight parking. We moved into our house in 2017 and made many trips to the area before moving in. One of our biggest concerns about buying the house was having a gas station across the street. However, in our many trips by, and even after talking to the person working the late evening shift at the gas station, it was clear that it was quiet in the overnight hours. At the time, there wasn't even much room to park for trucks to park near the part of the property adjacent to houses. However, as Tamby mentioned a second ago, in 2019, after I-69 was completed through Monroe County, we started noticing large amounts of fill being brought in and dumped along the eastern edge of the property. In looking at images from Elevate, there's bare dirt in that same area even in 2016. However, it wasn't until 2019 that it was filled in to a point where gravel was laid over the top and a much larger parking area was created. It was becoming a nightly occurrence to hear semis idling all night long. It was not uncommon to see in excess of 30 trucks parked throughout the lot. It became normal for us to be woken up multiple times throughout the night because of vibrations from idling trucks, or refrigeration units on trucks cycling on and off, or beeping from trucks backing into parking spots. We rarely hear traffic from State Road 37 inside our house, but the frequency of the idling trucks overnight causes our house to vibrate. In looking at the packet tonight, it's clear to me that truck parking was never a permitted use. I've talked to two neighbors who lived in their houses at the time the gas station was built, and they both told me they were assured it was not going to be a truck stop. It should not be permitted tonight just because it's always been happening. This would be rewarding decades of zoning violations and set a bad precedent for the entire county. In addition, this would negate the reason we even have zoning in the first place. The letters in the packet confirming past activity are all from people with past financial interest in the business and only confirm truck parking has been occurring for decades. This site is zoned pre-existing business, and that designation covers intensity. In looking at the satellite images in the packet, it's undeniable that the parking area and intensity has greatly increased since the 90s. A few unoccupied trucks parking in a parking lot is one thing, but in excess of 30 parking in the same lot is completely different. In addition, the images over time are all from the daytime. There are no photos to indicate how many vehicles were actually parking there in the overnight hours. Just between 2017 and 2019, the number increased drastically. In addition, this area is specifically addressed in the 2010 Monroe County Corridor Plan. That plan states that because of character and intensity of existing residential and business developments, the county has reviewed this issue and specifically recommends that truck stops and fueling stations not be developed at this location. I want to close by again saying that I support the permitted uses of the gas station. I appreciate the convenience of having it right across the street, but there needs to be limitations placed out of respect for the concerns of neighbors. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight to express some of my concerns as a neighbor.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Does any of the board have questions for Mr. Morris? Okay. I believe somebody else had their hand up just a moment ago. Where did they go? Is there anyone else here that you wishes to speak against this petition?
Yes, I would. My name is Patty Bush.
Patty, do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you, Patty.
My name is Patty Bush, and I live within 300 yards of P&G Associates. I oppose this petition because of the proposed extended time parking and overnight parking for tractor trailer rigs. The diesel exhaust from idling trucks is noxious. Idling of motor vehicles contributes to global warming and is linked to asthma, decreased lung function, cardiac disease, cancer, and other serious health problems. A study by the Alternative Fuel Data Center found that idling semi-truck would burn approximately 6.5 gallons of diesel fuel during an 8-hour period. A gallon of burned diesel fuel emits about 22 pounds of carbon dioxide. 1 minute of idling puts more carbon monoxide into the air than smoking 3 packs of cigarettes. The tonnage of carbon dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and particulate matter emitted into the environment by heavy-duty truck idling during rest periods is staggering. The petitioners propose no idling signage on their site. This will be exceedingly difficult to enforce for the following reasons. Number one, limited on-site staff to enforce this policy. Number two, extreme hot and cold weather conditions requiring idling to heat or cool the cab. Number three, idling keeps engines warm, prevents diesel fuel from thickening as temps get cold, and can prevent difficult startups. Number four, idling ensures the alternator keeps the battery charged. Number five, idling overnight costs nothing to the non-owner operators. We have been led to believe that tractor trailer drivers have no other option near Bloomington and I-69 to stop and rest. That's not true. August 16th, I spoke to Shelby at Walmart headquarters about Walmart store number 1991 on West State Road 45. They allow semi-tractor trailers to park on their lot. And Joey, a manager at Sam's Club, also located on West State Road 45, said parking is allowed on their lower lot for a period of up to 24 hours at one time. I support the operation of convenience store and gas station. It provides a valuable service to the community. However, I am opposed to overnight truck parking for the reasons mentioned above. Thank you for your time.
Patty, I have a question for you. Did you say how long you have lived there?
We've lived on this property since 1999, and I frequented this property since 1985, when Buckingham owned it.
And what was your experience as far as trucks parking overnight when you first moved in?
Very few, negligible. And I used to visit the convenience store more frequently then. I can say it isn't a documented area, but as far as odors go, they've been much worse. The smell of diesel, particularly when the air is stagnant, is very recognizable and obvious in morning times and evening times when the air is still, if it's really hot or if it's really cold. For example, this morning, there was a skunk killed on Church Lane, but what I could smell was the diesel. At 9:30, I timed it. So that's all I have to say about that.
Okay, does any of the other board members have questions for Patty?
Yeah, Mary Beth, would you repeat the question that you asked Mrs.
I'm sorry, I asked her how long she had lived there. And I asked her what her experience there when they were first in the area was with the overnight parking.
Okay, Mrs. Bush, your answer was that you didn't experience seeing many trucks parking overnight there?
That's correct. When we moved in 1999, and I used to frequent the convenience store more at that time than I do now, It was not obvious. It was a quote unquote truck stop.
Okay. Thank you, Patty. Natalie, I believe you are next. I need you to, do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state your name for the record.
My name is Natalie Blaze. My husband and I have owned the property just south of there, behind the Morris home since 2001. They've been there for only a handful of years. We have actually been there for 20. As to your question to other neighbors throughout the area, we are closer than the Patty and Dave Bush. They are at 1250 West Church Lane. We are at 1250 West Old Capitol Pike. Unlike them, the wind must blow in their direction because we've been across from the gas station for 20 years and have not had issues. We have had issues with the air quality coming from the septic plant, but not once have we ever felt the need to file a complaint against the gas station because we simply have not had any issues. I'm sorry. My add to that is that, like our neighbors, the Morrises at the farm, we knew what we were buying when we bought the property just south of the gas station. We knew that there was trucks present day and night. We knew the traffic consistency. We knew of the major issues revolving evolving around accidents at that interstate or intersection when there was no lights, before there was a blinker light, before there was a traffic light, before 69. And never once did we have issues or complaints with any smell coming from the gas station. I can hear a J brake in the middle of the night when I'm sleeping, but again, I knew what I was buying when I bought that property. To insist that there's smell coming from that and that like trumps over the septic plant, I think is just ridiculous coming from our neighbors. Our concerns coming from this appeal is that we're actually for the gas station, for the local community, for the local business that is trying to provide a service for people that serve us. You know, the trucks coming in and out, they serve us. They're providing all the goods that you and I need, whether it's toilet paper or drinking water. You know, those are the people that do that. You know, when we had this discussion, however long ago it was, I brought up the fact that these truckers were lined up along the corridor, just one exit down on I-69, because I happen to travel that every day. And, you know, it's all about us and not about them. It's all about us and it's not about them. And this is this continuing, you know, conversation that everybody keeps having. You want everything for you, but not for the general population. And I had a specific conversation with my neighbors who are the most recent owners in the neighborhood. And Erica Morris said to me specifically, we know what we bought. We know what is across the road. We know the businesses behind us and we're okay. We want this farm and we want to live and grow with this farm. And yet here we are. My argument to all of this is that somebody brought it up earlier about how could it was Mike Carmen, I'm sorry, it was their attorney who said, how could you not know for 30 years what was going on at this particular station? And I would like to concur with that, because how could you not know? All of this is happening because it's what happens around a gas station. And yet all of these folks who are sitting here complaining or arguing or speaking up their concerns, which they're obviously allowed to have, but where have they been for the last 30 years? I have been at this location for 20. I had an issue at the neighbor's house regarding gun shooting into a berm 10 years ago or so. I spoke up. I spoke to the county and I got those issues addressed. My question is, where were these neighbors who smell these awful gas fumes that were just choking them to death? Where were they then? So here we are. Another issue that was brought up was that all of the photos that are in this example are all during the day. So if there are no photos during the night, how can you reasonably argue that the nighttime is worse? Now, truckers, I'm sure they need a place to stay, but you can't argue an actual complaint if there's no photos to support your judgment. Now, I know our neighbors do tend to walk up there in the middle of the night, 2, 3 a.m. and take photos because they want to argue their opinion, but this particular argument is not shown in these issues. I'm not trying to be disagreeable. I'm not trying to argue that maybe my neighbors might smell some fumes once in a while, but I think their arguments are grossly overstated. And I think this is an attack on some neighbors who are really trying to provide a service to our neighborhood that is growing despite my neighbors' concerns. Growth is happening. And I think turning this down is just wrong. That's my argument.
Okay, thank you so much. Does the board have any questions? No? All right. And does anyone else here wish to speak against the petition?
I would like to speak for the petition, please.
Okay. And who is this?
My name is Tina Rogers.
I'm sorry. I'd like to interject here, Mary Beth. I mean,
Yeah.
the time for the people to have spoken for it has passed.
Yes, that is true.
Okay.
We didn't get, I was trying to unmute myself and I was remuted.
I think that we should, my opinion is, I think that we should allow some latitude, just either way.
Given the technology that we are dealing with.
I think it's fair. And I really am interested personally in what people have to say.
And we did let the last lady speak for the petition when we were doing against the petition. So please state your name.
My name is Tina Rogers.
Okay. What'd you say, Margaret? I'm sorry.
Is there a time limit on the speakers?
I'll be brief.
Okay.
I'll be very brief.
All right. Tina, do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. I've lived about a mile away from the gas station for 14 years. For 14 years, myself, my family, a family of children, 19-year-old who has frequented the gas station at all hours of the night, all hours of the day for those 14 years. I do understand that there are concerns with the people who do live there, but I would like to say that I have not witnessed these amount of trucks that there is a claim to be in this amount of time. Could trucks come in there and pull in when people are, not there? They can, and that might happen, but they have done everything in their power to regulate this, to make it a safe environment where I had no problem sending a 16-year-old at night who's a female. They're welcoming, they're kind. They provide a great service to our community, and some of the vehicles that they do house provide emergency services to our community, which are much needed in this time. To say no to broaden anybody's uses or to correct a use that has been in place for 30 years seems a bit odd that it seems to be a concern now. And I would ask that you do appeal this decision and allow the usage.
Okay, thank you so much. And is there anybody else here that would like to speak against this petition? I'm not seeing any hands up.
I do not see anyone. Just for anyone that's on the phone, I believe *6 to raise your hand, *9 to unmute. I don't see anyone, Mary Beth.
All right, I just want to make sure everybody gets to say their piece. Would the board have a recommendation of a motion?
Excuse me?
Motion.
Excuse me, this is Mike Carmen. May I speak, please?
Hey, Mike.
you've got a county attorney. I don't see him logged on, but I mean, these are difficult hearings to begin with because it's the awkwardness of appealing the decision by the very people that you normally look to for recommendations and reports, and that certainly makes it awkward. But your rules of procedure allow rebuttal. So you're going to vote now, and you're not going to give me a chance for rebuttal. I do not understand this.
Oh, okay, sorry. I'm sorry, Mr. Carmen. I'm glad to hear your rebuttal.
Well, because the last hallmark of any petitioner has to be the process, because process is where we find our due process rights on proper procedure. And so maybe Bernie thinks I was being too caustic about it, but I think following proper procedure is an important act. You are a quasi judicial board. You make findings of fact. You're an appellate body. And there are rules that govern how you do that. This is not a variance request. This is not an examination of site plan issues and adverse impacts. This is a very narrow issue. It's an interpretation of an ordinance, and that's all it is. And I bless all the speakers. I mean, I disagree with Ms. Bush. I disagree with Ms. Morris. I applaud the comments of Natalie Blaze and last week. I'm sorry, I lost the name here. It went off my screen. I'm sorry, I can't read that. But in all honesty, almost nothing of what any of those people had to say, their views and their desires, are actually relevant to your decision. Your decision is supposed to be an interpretation of the use and an interpretation of the ordinance, and apply the ordinance to the use. Whether it generates smoke, dust, noise, or does none of the above is actually not a consideration for you tonight. And I see David Schilling on now, so I'll let you take your legal advice from him, but I would submit that this is an issue of examination of the use, when it went in, and what the ordinance says. And I do not want to bore you with repeating myself, so I'll just refer back to the 1986 ordinance authorizes this use, and it's been in place. The pre-existing business zone blessed this use, and it has continued uninterrupted since, and it should be allowed to continue uninterrupted. That is a proper interpretation of the ordinance and a proper use determination. Nothing else is frankly relevant on that point. And would ask you to, as requested earlier, to vacate the use determination issued by the director and make a finding that use determination includes the temporary truck parking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carmen. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Carmen? No. Okay.
Yeah, I would, I'm glad Dave jumped on, because my thoughts were exactly along the lines that, you know, we rely on the planning staff for how we proceed with these meetings, and having Dave on here, making sure that we are doing this in a manner that's respectful to everybody and vets out the important information is important too. So my first question is, Dave, and I don't know that you heard the beginning of this matter, but Larry started with an explanation, I think, of where his interpretation was on this pre-existing business and the uses within. So can you explain to us now, one, does Mr. Wilson have any opportunity to speak at all and make a presentation based on what his findings were, or is it that we have enough documentation based on what he's written and said in the past that we shouldn't need to hear anything else? Does that make sense?
Well, I think that your rules of procedure say that, as Mike said, pointed out, that the petition is read in by the chairman, and then the petitioner presents their case. Comments are heard, and then the petitioner has a reasonable time for rebuttal. So there doesn't seem to, it seems to have gone a little bit out of order. but I think all the parts are there.
Okay.
So you've got the petitioner and the petitioner's rebuttal, and the director presented his case as well.
Well, what I've seen over the years on this property are trucks all hours of the night. And I think through the plan commission process, I think I've publicly stated that already. So my question to you, Dave, is, and this may be a silly question, but I'm going to ask it. Are we looking at this as a point that the director's interpretation was wrong, or that his interpretation was reasonable to come up to his conclusion? Does that make sense?
Well, I can tell you what your obligations are, and this is under the statute. It says, upon appeal, the board may reverse, affirm, or modify the decision appealed from. For this purpose, the board has all the powers of the official from which the appeal is taken. That type of review is known as de novo review. And de novo means from the new. So the BZA must decide this case anew, that is, without deference to any legal conclusions or assumptions made by the planning director. So the BZA is acting today as if it's the first person that is hearing this, that it is the first person making the decision. And I would say, I do agree with Mr. Carmen on the issue before the board. It's not whether overnight parking of trucks is a good idea or a bad idea. The issue is whether that type of parking was allowed under the 1986 ordinance and was allowed to continue under the pre-existing business use. So those are specific ordinance interpretation issues that are based on the language of the ordinances and the facts presented.
Okay.
Margaret, any questions for Dave?
Well, I mean, in this entire discussion, we're not focusing at all on the changed nature of the trucking industry and whether or not that type of pre-existing business could really have existed in the way that it's presented itself and is under review right now. I don't, I mean, our ways of life have changed so much since 1986, and the use of trucks for transport of goods across the nation, and especially due to shipping from other countries, et cetera, that it seems to me that to compare what is happening in the present to what might have been happening in 1986, it's another world. Let's just be honest. So to me, I would be tending toward affirming the director's interpretation.
And I'm leaning the other way, and because I've witnessed that site and have seen the overnight parking and the overnight truck parking, and that's what we're talking about. And that's why I specifically asked Mr. Carmen, you know, what that relevance was, because, you know, in another 20 years, it may be something else. Aside from what may happen on this property in the future or not, and that's where I think we got in the weeds earlier, I believe it has had that use over the years under the pre-existing business. So. And with the three of us, and the reason why I bring that up now is that with the three of us, we will not come to a conclusion this evening. It doesn't sound like. Would you agree with that, Margaret?
Yeah, I would agree with that, Bernie. As much as I respect your point of view and the points of view even of the people who testified and Mr. Carmen. And I do respect all of and Mr. Wilson, I do respect that, but I don't think I would be swayed because the nature of our life has changed and it's a different world. What existed in 1988 is completely different from what is occurring now. I would just have to say.
Okay, so Dave, what happens?
Well, I think it's the replay of what happened earlier. If somebody wants to make a motion to continue, it seems like that's the only viable option.
I mean, I think in a matter where we are appealing the director's interpretation, I think it's a 3 of 5 person BZA this evening, and we've already all three maybe, or at least 2 of us have spoken our points of view. I can go ahead and make a motion, Mary Beth. And not to cut anything off, I'm just trying to help you keep things moving.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead and make a motion, Bernie.
Okay, in the matter of ADR-21-3, this is the appeal of the director's interpretation of pre-existing business uses at 5100 South Victor Pike. I move that we continue this. Can I continue? Do I need to continue this to a specific meeting? Because
Yes, I think that would be.
If you as legal counsel, not staff, if you would like some flexibility in if there's anything else you need to prepare, or we're coming up on a month, I'm just giving the option to our counsel whether or not he recommends we continue to the 1st or leave that open if there's other information that we need to have in front of us.
Yeah, well, Bernie, if you don't continue it to a date specific, then they'll have to re-advertise in the newspaper. Okay. I don't know if they do that. I don't know if they do that as a matter of course anyway.
Okay. In the matter of that case I just quoted, I move that we continue this to the December 3rd, December 1st. Which one was it? December 1st. Regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals in Monroe County.
I second that motion.
The only thing I would request is that for Dave to basically review the statute and our rules to make sure that we have it set up, procedure is set up precisely insofar as possible. It's a somewhat difficult situation. We've only dealt with these a couple of times. The statute really doesn't give a lot of guidance as to what goes on here. It clearly implies that people can speak at the hearing because they treat it the same as a variance. It's included in the same procedural things from a statutory standpoint as a variance. So, some guidance as to the procedure. When I presented a summary, I in no way intended to predispose any. All I did was try to summarize what was in the written materials. Mm-hmm. But it's not even. The other problem is it's not really basically a review of my materials. It's a new determination by the board, the way David describes the statute. Mm-hmm. It's not whether I used reasonable care or not, or whether I was correct. It's basically you get to decide all over again. As I read the statutes, de novo. So I have a question of whether if it's de novo, does that include the presentation of evidence to the BZA? So there are questions we'll have to look up. I cannot find any case law on these administrative appeals. Maybe Dave has some sources, but again, I think if Mike has sources where this has been dealt with as far as establishing the procedure and what goes on, the statute again is not of much use. other than we're supposed to treat it like a variance, the way the statute is set up.
Okay, and that's, my motion's been made, and that's why I wanted to make sure Dave had the time he needed to make sure that we were directed in a manner that was appropriate. So that, thanks for that, Mr. Wilson.
Okay, I will call, do we have a second on the, do we have a motion to
Yes.
continue?
We had a second.
Okay, I'm sorry. I will call the roll. I apologize for getting off track there. The vote is, motion is to continue ADR-21-3, petitioner PG and Associates LLC to the December 1st meeting of the BZA. Again, a vote in favor is a vote to determine to continue the petition. Margaret Clemens,
Yes.
Rudy Garitas,
Yes.
Mary Beth Marchek.
Yes.
Okay, the petitions continue December 1st.
Thank you, Mr. Carmen.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hey, quick question on one of our earlier petitions that we continued. Did we state that as December 1st?
Yes, we did.
Okay, I thought I remembered saying December 3rd, but as long as we have the right meeting, thanks.
We stated December 1st. Okay. Any other business we need to discuss? No, nothing from legal?
Nothing from legal.
Okay, thank you. I make the motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.